She escaped the clutches of her abusive boyfriend with her daughter, covered in bruises, and knocked on the door of a gangster boss at 2 in the morning. She thought he would refuse, but she never expected. His first words were, "Onion who dares to touch you or your child, I'll make them disappear from the city." At that moment, for the first time, her daughter was no longer afraid of men. And he, for the first time, revealed a tenderness that didn't belong to darkness. When she asked, "Why are you so good to us?" he only said 8 words, "Because you are my exception." What she didn't expect was, protection was only the beginning of his love for her.
Welcome to Airless's Romance Stories. Read the entire novel in one go. Message or comment to tell me what kind of story you'd like to read. Subscribe to the channel for daily updates. Airless reminds you, the story begins now.
We stayed like that for several minutes, my face pressed against his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. When I finally pulled back, his hands lingered on my arms, warm and solid. "I should check on Emma," I said, not quite ready to break the moment but needing to. "Of course, I'll have Marco make her favorite pasta for dinner. Sometimes comfort food helps after trauma." The casual understanding, the immediate shift to caring for my daughter's needs, made my chest ache. "You are very good at this, taking care of people. Only people I care about." His thumb brushed across my arm, barely there, but I felt it everywhere. "Get some rest, Claire, tomorrow. I start making Marcus Carter's life very difficult." I nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. "Claire." I looked back. "You were right to ask me. No one threatens what is mine." The possessiveness in his words should have frightened me. Instead, they made me feel safer than I had in years. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep clutching my hand, I couldn't settle. My mind kept replaying Marcus's face, his voice, the way Emma had looked so small in that closet. Around midnight, I gave up on sleep and wandered downstairs, finding Dante exactly where I expected, in his study with papers spread across his desk and a glass of whiskey. He looked up when I entered, unsurprised. "Can't sleep. Too much in my head. Sit." He poured a second glass, sliding it across the desk to me. "Drink. It helps." I took the chair across from him, accepting the whiskey. It burned going down, but the warmth that followed was welcome. "Tell me about him," Dante said after a moment. "Your husband, you mentioned he died 8 years ago, that you've been alone since then, except for making the mistake of Marcus." I looked into my glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. David was a police officer. Good man, dedicated, believed in protecting people. He died in a shooting during a routine traffic stop. Emma was 4. The old grief was there, but duller now, worn smooth by time. I shut down after, focused entirely on surviving, on raising Emma, on just getting through each day. I didn't date, didn't let anyone close. For 7 years, it was just us, until Marcus. Until I got so desperately lonely that I mistook attention for affection. I took another sip. He seemed normal at first, stable, safe. By the time I realized what he really was, I was already trapped. Dante leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You are not trapped anymore. Number thanks to you." "Why did you come to me tonight, Claire? Really?" I met his eyes across the desk. "Because I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts, because you are the only person who understands what today meant, because..." I trailed off, not quite ready to voice the rest. "Because," he prompted gently, "because something's changing between us, and I don't know what to do about it." Silence fell, charged with everything we weren't saying. Dante set down his glass deliberately. "I noticed you the first day you came to work for me 5 years ago. Thought you were beautiful, capable, strong in quiet ways most people miss. But you were my employee, grieving, raising a child alone. I would never have acted on it." He paused. "Then you showed up bleeding and terrified, and everything I felt became something else. Something protective and possessive and entirely inappropriate given the circumstances." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Inappropriate how?" "You are vulnerable, Claire. You are healing from trauma, dependent on my protection. Any move I make right now could be seen as taking advantage." "What if I don't see it that way?" His eyes darkened. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I know the difference between a man who wants to control me and a man who wants to protect me. I am saying that when you held me today, I felt safer than I have in a decade. I am saying, I took a breath. I am saying I see you too, Dante, the man under the power, the one who smiles at my daughter covered in flour, who asks permission before touching me, who is methodically dismantling my nightmare because I asked him to. Claire. My name sounded like a prayer and a warning. If we do this, if we cross this line, there is no going back. My world is dangerous, the life I lead, the choices I make. They're not ones most people can live with. And your world can't be more dangerous than staying silent while my daughter learned to hide in closets. He stood, moving around the desk to where I sat. Up close, I could see the conflict in his eyes, desire warring with restraint. I don't want to rush you into something you'll regret. I am not asking you to rush anything. I am just acknowledging what is here between us. I stood too, close enough to feel his heat. We don't have to do anything about it tonight. Just don't pretend it doesn't exist. Dante's hand rose to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I won't pretend, not with you. We stood like that for a moment, suspended in possibility before I stepped back. I should try to sleep. Claire. He caught my hand. Thank you. For what? For trusting me. For seeing me as more than what I do. For giving me a reason to want to be better. I squeezed his hand once before letting go. Thank you for giving us somewhere safe to land. I made it to the door before turning back one last time. Dante was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite name but felt in every nerve ending. Good night, Dante. Good night, Claire. Sleep well. I wouldn't sleep well, we both knew that. But as I climbed the stairs back to my room, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years blooming cautiously in my chest. Not quite hope. Not yet. But the possibility of it. The understanding that maybe, just maybe, my daughter and I had found more than temporary shelter in Dante Romano's home. Maybe we'd found a future. The second week brought a subtle shift in the household dynamics. Me ribs healed enough that I could move without wincing. And I found myself drifting back into familiar patterns. Tidying spaces that didn't need tidying. Organizing kitchens that were already perfect. Old habits from 5 years of employment here. You don't have to do that. Dante's voice came from the doorway as I reorganized his study bookshelf one afternoon. You are not staff anymore, Claire. I turned to find him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I need to do something. Sitting idle makes me anxious. Then help me with something that matters. He gestured to fabric swatches spread across his desk. I am renovating the East Wing guest rooms. Marco insists the current colors are depressing. What do you think? It was such a small thing, asking my opinion on interior design, but it felt significant, like he was making space for me in his world beyond just shelter. This one, I touched a warm cream fabric. It is welcoming without being stark. You have good taste. He made a note. What about the library? I've been meaning to update it for years. We spent an hour discussing books and colors and furniture placement, conversation flowing easily between us. At some point, I realized we weren't talking about rooms anymore, but about futures, about permanence, about what it meant to make a house feel like home. The third week, Emma's therapy sessions began showing real progress. She smiled more, had fewer nightmares, started asking about returning to school properly, rather than the homeschooling Dante had arranged temporarily. Watching her heal made something in my chest both lighter and heavier, grateful for her resilience while mourning what had been taken from her. Mom, she asked one afternoon while we walked through Dante's garden. A space I'd discovered brought peace when my thoughts grew too loud. Can I ask you something? Always, baby. Do you like Dante? Like him. Like him. I stopped walking, caught off guard by the directness. Why do you ask? Because you smile different now when he is around, and he looks at you the way Dad used to look at you in the old photos. She picked at a flower petal. Is that allowed? To like someone new after Dad? The question hit deeper than she knew. What do you think? Does it bother you? Emma considered this seriously, the way she approached everything these days. Dad's been gone a long time. I barely remember him except through stories. And Dante, he is nice to us, Mom. Really nice. He doesn't yell or get mad or hurt people he is supposed to protect. She looked up at me with those two old eyes. Can he be my dad? Like, a new one? My throat tightened. It is complicated, sweetheart. Dante's life, his work, it is not like other people's. You mean because he is dangerous? She shrugged. You know I am 12, not stupid. I know what kind of man has security guards and makes people scared just by looking at them. But he has never been dangerous to us. Actually, he is the only person who made us safe. Out of the mouths of children, brutal truth delivered without filter. She was right. Dante had shown us more genuine protection than any supposedly safe person in our lives. If something happened between Dante and me, if we became more than just people living in the same house, how would you feel? Happy. No hesitation. I'd feel happy because you'd be happy, and maybe I'd have a dad again who actually wanted to be one. That conversation stayed with me through dinner, through Emma's bedtime routine, through the hours I spent trying to read in my room while my mind wandered. Around 11, I gave up and went searching for the one person I really wanted to talk to. I found Dante in the garden where moonlight painted everything silver, standing by the fountain with something in his hands. As I approached, I saw it was a photograph, old and slightly faded. I am sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. He looked up, and something vulnerable flickered across his face before his usual composure settled back into place. You are not interrupting, join me. I moved to stand beside him, close enough to see the photo clearly. A woman with dark hair and Dante's eyes smiled out from the frame, elegant even in the casual setting. Your mother? Elena Romano died when I was 15. His voice was steady, but something underneath it wasn't. Brain aneurysm. One moment she was laughing at breakfast, the next she was gone. No warning, no chance to prepare. I am sorry. My father never recovered. He threw himself into the business, into building his empire, and he brought me with him, taught me everything about power and control and never showing weakness. Dante traced his mother's face in the photo. He taught me that loving someone deeply meant giving them the power to destroy you, so I never let anyone close enough to hurt me. The confession hung in the night air between us, weighted with years of deliberate isolation. Until now, I ventured softly. Until I found a woman bleeding in my foyer and her daughter washing dishes at 2 a.m., and something in me broke that I can't seem to fix. He finally looked at me directly. You terrify me, Claire. Not because of who you are, but because of what you make me feel. What do I make you feel? Vulnerable. Like I'd burn down the entire city to keep you and Emma safe. Like maybe my father was wrong, and some things are worth the risk of pain. His hand rose to cut my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. You are the strongest woman I've ever met. Not because you never broke, but because you are choosing to heal. I leaned into his touch, letting myself feel the warmth of it. I lost my husband 8 years ago. David was a good man, a police officer who believed in protecting people the right way, through laws and justice. He died during a routine traffic stop, shot by someone he'd pulled over for a broken taillight. The old grief was there, but different now, worn smooth by time. I shut down completely after, focused everything on survival, on raising Emma, on just getting through each day without falling apart. For 7 years, I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. That being alone was safer than risking loss again. Until Marcus. Until I got so desperately lonely that I mistook any attention for affection. I knew something was wrong almost immediately, but I was already trapped. Pride, fear, shame. They all kept me silent longer than they should have. I met Dante's eyes. Can I forgive myself for that? For the months I let Emma live in fear because I was too broken to see clearly? You are asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether you can forgive yourself. It is whether you understand that survival sometimes requires choices that look like weakness, but are actually strength. His other hand came up to frame my face completely. You got yourself and Emma out. You found help. You are standing here healing instead of hiding. That is not weakness, Claire. That is courage. Something in me cracked open at those words. Permission I hadn't known I needed to stop carrying guilt like armor. Dante. Mom. Emma's voice came from the garden door, sleepy and confused. I had a bad dream. Dante dropped his hands immediately, giving me space to go to my daughter. I'll make tea, he said quietly. The kind that helps with sleep. I gathered Emma close, feeling her trembling slightly. What was the dream about? Marcus. He was taking me away, and you couldn't stop him. Her fingers clutched my shirt. It felt so real. It wasn't real, baby. Marcus is gone, and he is never coming back. Promise? I promise. Dante returned with warm milk and honey, crouching down to Emma's level. Your mother's right. I've made certain Marcus Carter will never bother either of you again. Do you believe me? Emma studied his face with that serious intensity she'd developed. Yes, you don't lie. Never to you or your mother. Now, drink this and let Claire take you back to bed. After Emma was settled and finally asleep again, I returned to the garden. But Dante was gone. I found him instead in the library, surrounded by law books and papers spread across every surface. Research, I asked from the doorway. Ensuring every detail of Marcus's departure is airtight. I don't leave loose ends. I crossed the room, drawn by something I couldn't name, and sat in the chair beside his, close enough that our arms nearly touched. Thank you for earlier with Emma. She is a remarkable child. You raised her well. She asked me today if you could be her father, her new father. Dante went very still. What did you tell her? That it is complicated, that your life is dangerous, that I don't know what we're doing here. I turned to face him fully. But I want to figure it out. This thing between us. I want to explore it, even knowing all the reasons it is impossible. Claire. He took my hand, threading our fingers together. If we do this, there is no going back. My world will touch yours in ways that might hurt you. Your world already touched mine. You saved us from something that would have killed one or both of us eventually. Whatever complications come from caring about you, they can't be worse than what we escaped. I am falling in love with you. The words came out raw, honest. I've been fighting it for weeks, trying to be honorable and give you space to heal, but I am losing that fight. My heart hammered against my ribs. What if I don't want you to fight it? Then we'd be fools together. A mafia boss and a widow with a daughter, trying to build something real from circumstances that should have kept us strangers forever. Maybe the best things come from impossible circumstances. Dante lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that felt like a promise. Stay with me, not as a guest or someone I am protecting, but as someone I am choosing. Choose me back. I already have. The truth of it settled in my chest. I think I chose you the moment you asked permission to hold me. The moment you cared about my daughter's terror more than your own convenience. The moment you showed me that power doesn't have to mean pain. 1 month after that rainy night at 2 a.m., Dante called me to his study with an expression I couldn't quite read. Professional, controlled, but underneath it, something that looked almost like satisfaction. It is done, he said simply, gesturing for me to sit. Marcus Carter signed everything this morning. He is leaving New York today, and he won't be back. The relief hit me so suddenly I had to grip the armrest to steady myself. What happened? What did you do? Dante slid a folder across his desk, thick with documentation I barely wanted to touch. My investigators were thorough. Photographs of every bruise you had over the last 8 months, taken by your neighbor Mrs. Harris, who was documenting everything in case you needed help. Hospital records from 3 different emergency rooms, testimonies from Marcus's co-workers about his violent temper and drinking, and gambling debts totaling $52,000 that he'd been hiding from you. 52,000? I'd had no idea. I bought those debts. Then I had my lawyers compile everything into a case that would guarantee him years in prison for domestic violence, assault, and child endangerment. Franco's voice was matter of fact, like he was discussing weather rather than destroying someone's life. Marcus was given a choice: sign documents permanently renouncing any rights or contact with you and Emma, accept $18,000 to start over in another state and disappear, or face prosecution and have his debts called in by people far less patient than loan sharks. You gave him money. That seemed wrong somehow. Enough to ensure he has no excuse to come back. Men like Marcus, they're predators, but they're also cowards. When confronted with real power, real consequences, they fold. Dante leaned back in his chair. He signed everything, Claire. Full custody to you, restraining order that follows him anywhere in the country. Agreement never to contact either of you again. It is legally binding and backed by resources he can't fight. I stared at the folder, at the physical proof that my nightmare was over. Did you hurt him? Number I didn't need to. The threat of what I could do was enough. His dark eyes held mine steadily. Are you asking if he'd refused to cooperate? Was I? Did I want to know the answer? I don't know what I am asking. Then I'll tell you the truth, and you can decide how you feel about it. Dante stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, closer to where I sat. If Marcus Carter had refused this offer, if he'd insisted on fighting for access to you or Emma, I would have made him disappear, in ways that don't involve paperwork or lawyers, because I will not tolerate threats to people under my protection. The honesty should have frightened me. This was confirmation of everything I'd suspected about who Dante really was, what he was capable of. But all I felt was a bone, deep relief that someone with that kind of power had chosen to use it for me. I should feel conflicted about this, I said quietly. About what you did, how you did it. I should worry about the morality of coercion and threats. But you know what? What? I don't. I met his eyes. All I feel is grateful that my daughter won't spend the rest of her childhood looking over her shoulder, that I can breathe without calculating exit routes, that you cared enough to make this happen. Something shifted in Dante's expression, the professional mask cracking to reveal raw emotion underneath. Claire, I need you to understand something. What I did wasn't just about protection or obligation. I wanted Marcus gone because the thought of him anywhere near you makes me violent in ways I can barely control. He stopped, jaw tightening. Because what? Because I've fallen in love with you, and I can't have threats to my peace of mind walking around free. The confession hung between us, weighty and undeniable. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stood, closing the distance between us until we were nearly touching. Say that again. I love you. No hesitation this time. I love you and your daughter and the life I am imagining building with both of you. And I know it is too soon, and you are still healing, and I have no right to feel this way, but I can't. I kissed him. Rose up on my toes and pressed my lips to his, cutting off his words with action instead. For a heartbeat, he froze, surprised. Then his arms came around me, and he kissed me back with an intensity that stole my breath. It wasn't gentle. Dante kissed like he did everything else, with total commitment and barely leashed control. His hands framed my face, angling my head to deepen the kiss, and I felt the weeks of tension between us finally breaking open into something urgent and real. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. That was your choice, he said, voice rough. You kissed me first. I need you to know that. Need you to understand I would never have pushed. I know. I touched his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. That is why I did it. Because you've spent a month showing me what it means to be with someone who respects my choices, even when they have the power to take them away. Claire, my name sounded like a prayer. I want you completely, want you in my bed and my life and my future, but I won't rush you. What if I am done waiting? The words came out braver than I felt. What if I am ready to choose this? Choose you, right now. His eyes searched mine, looking for doubt he wouldn't find. Your ribs are healed enough, Claire. I am not made of glass. I won't shatter if you touch me. No, he agreed, thumb brushing across my lower lip. You are made of something far stronger. That is what terrifies me. We stood like that for a long moment, balanced on the edge of everything changing, before Dante stepped back. Tonight, we tell Emma that Marcus is gone. We celebrate that you are both finally safe. And then, he let the implication hang. And then I am going to spend every day showing you what it means to be loved by someone who would burn down the world to keep you safe. That evening, we told Emma over dinner that Marco had prepared specially. Pasta carbonara that she'd helped make. Garlic bread, a small cake with new beginning written in careful frosting letters. Marcus signed papers today, Dante explained gently to Emma. He agreed to leave New York permanently and never contact you or your mother again. It is legally binding, which means if he breaks that agreement, he goes to prison. Emma's face cycled through several emotions: relief, disbelief, cautious hope. He is really gone forever. Forever, I confirmed, reaching for her hand across the table. You never have to see him or think about him again. Did you hurt him? She asked Dante directly. That too, old wisdom in her young eyes. I made him understand that hurting people I care about comes with consequences he couldn't afford to face. Dante's answer was honest without being graphic. Your mother and I decided together how to handle this, and we chose the path that kept everyone safe while ensuring your security. Emma processed this with her usual seriousness, then surprised us both by asking, "Are you and Mom together now? Like, dating?" Dante and I exchanged glances. "Would that bother you if we were?" I asked carefully. "Are you kidding? I asked you about this weeks ago, Mom. I've been waiting for you to figure it out." She rolled her eyes with perfect preteen exasperation. "Dante's nice, and he makes you smile. Plus, he taught me how to make focaccia. That is basically dad material right there." Dante's laugh was surprised and genuine, transforming his face. "Dad material because of focaccia. The bar's not that high." "After Marcus," Emma said with brutal honesty, "you are already better just by not being terrible." After dinner, after Emma went to bed with Marco reading her a story about Roman mythology, Dante and I walked through the garden under a moon so full it painted everything silver. "Thank you," I said into the quiet night. "For everything you've done, everything you've given us. I would do anything for you." He stopped walking, turning to face me. "For both of you, you understand that. Yes, that you've become the most important thing in my life. I am beginning to." I moved into his space, letting myself touch him freely for the first time. My hands slid up his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady under my palms. "Dante, I am ready. For whatever comes next, for all of it. I choose this. I choose you." His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing across my cheekbones. "I need to hear you say it, need to know this is real. I love you." The words felt right, true, like something I'd been holding back without realizing. "I love you, and I trust you, and I want to build a life with you, even knowing how complicated that life might be." Dante kissed me then, and this time there was promise in it, heat and possession and devotion all wrapped together. His arms came around me carefully, mindful of my healing ribs, but there was nothing careful about the way he kissed me, like he was claiming something precious. We didn't sleep together that night. We weren't quite there yet, both understanding that some things deserved patience. But we stood in the garden until the moon set, wrapped in each other, making promises without words about the future we were choosing together. When we finally went inside, Dante walked me to my door, pressed one more kiss to my forehead, and whispered, "Tomorrow, I am going to start showing you what forever looks like." I believed him. For the first time in years, I believed in forevers again. The month that followed Marcus's departure felt like learning to breathe again. I was no longer staff, no longer the quiet woman who cleaned Dante's home and disappeared into the background. I was his partner, a shift that required adjusting to in ways I hadn't anticipated. "You'll come with me tonight," Dante said one morning over coffee, casual as if he was suggesting a walk rather than asking me to attend a business dinner with associates, whose names I recognized from news reports. "Wear something elegant. These men need to understand you are under my protection." "Dante, I don't have anything elegant enough for..." A dress box appeared on my bed that afternoon. Deep sapphire silk that fit like it had been made for me, which I realized when I found the tailor's card inside. It had been. The thoughtfulness of it, the care taken to ensure I felt confident rather than out of place, made my chest ache in ways I was still learning to accept. The dinner was everything I'd expected and nothing like it. Men in expensive suits who radiated controlled danger. Conversations that danced around illegal activities without ever naming them directly. And through it all, Dante's hand on the small of my back, claiming me to a world that could have swallowed me whole. "She is the one who tamed our Dante," one man said with a knowing smile. "We'd begun to think he was married to the business." "Claire tames nothing," Dante corrected smoothly. "She simply reminded me there are things worth protecting beyond territory and profit." I navigated the evening with careful observation, learning the rules of this world through watching how Dante moved through it. The deference people showed him, the careful way they phrased questions, the understanding that some topics were off limits. By the end of the night, I'd fielded polite inquiries about my background with practiced vagueness, and smiled through implications I pretended not to understand. "You were perfect," Dante said in the car ride home, fingers threading through mine. "They expected you to be intimidated or out of your depth. Instead, you held your own." I survived 8 months with Marcus. Your associates are dangerous, but at least they follow rules. His expression darkened at the mention of Marcus, but he simply lifted my hand to kiss my knuckles. You'll never have to survive anything again. From now on, you live. Living, I discovered, meant finally pursuing dreams I'd set aside. Dante noticed me researching business management programs one afternoon, and by the next morning had enrolled me in an online degree program through a prestigious university. I can't afford. Consider it an investment in our future. You are brilliant, Claire. You should have the credentials that prove it. The studies gave me purpose beyond healing, beyond adjusting to this new life. I dove into coursework with the same determination I'd once applied to survival, finding satisfaction in learning that had nothing to do with fear or necessity. Emma flourished too. Her therapy sessions showed real progress, the nightmares becoming less frequent, her smiles coming easier. She'd started calling Dante Uncle Dante naturally, and I watched their relationship develop with something warm and grateful settling in my chest. Marco says I have natural talent, Emma announced one afternoon, flour dusting her nose. He thinks I could be a real chef someday if I want. What do you want? Dante asked, genuine interest in his voice as he always showed with her. I want to be like you and Mom, someone who makes sure people are safe and have good food and don't have to be scared. She said it so simply, like combining Dante's protection with culinary care was the most natural ambition in the world. 2 months after that night at the hospital, Dante prepared dinner himself, sending Marco home early and setting the dining room with candles and wine that probably cost more than my old monthly rent. What is the occasion? I asked, smoothing down the dress I'd chosen, suddenly nervous. 2 months since you came to stay, since everything changed. He pulled out my chair, ever the gentleman despite the danger that lived under his skin. I wanted to mark it properly. The meal was simple but perfect. Pasta he'd made himself with Marco's patient guidance, bread still warm from the oven, wine that tasted like liquid gold. We talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing as naturally as it always did between us. After dinner, after the dishes were cleared, and Emma was asleep upstairs, Dante led me to the library where a fire crackled in the hearth. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and then just looked at me with an intensity that made my skin warm. Claire, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer, honestly. My heart hammered. Okay, are you ready for this, for us completely? His voice was steady, but I could see the vulnerability underneath. Because I've been patient, I've given you space to heal, but I can't pretend anymore that I don't want you, in every way possible. Heat flooded through me, desire mixing with nervousness. Dante, I am. It has been years since I've been with someone I actually wanted. Marcus, that was obligation and survival. Before him, it was David, and he died 8 years ago. I am nervous about whether I'll remember how to be with someone who actually cares about me. He set down his wine and crossed to where I stood, hands framing my face with devastating gentleness. Then we'll figure it out together. I am not expecting perfection, Claire. I just want you. I want this too. I want you. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I am ready. Dante kissed me slowly, thoroughly, like he had all the time in the world. His hand slid down to my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt years of loneliness and fear finally beginning to crack open into something new. We made our way upstairs to his room, to the bed that had been waiting for this moment. He was careful with me, attentive in ways that made tears prick my eyes. And when we finally came together, it felt like more than just physical intimacy. It felt like 2 people choosing each other, despite every reason they shouldn't work. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with moonlight streaming through the windows, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, contentment. The understanding that I'd found something I thought was lost to me forever. I love you, Dante murmured against my hair, in case there was any doubt. No doubt. I pressed a kiss to his chest right over his heart. I love you too. The next morning, I woke early and slipped out while Dante still slept. I drove to the cemetery where David was buried, something I hadn't done in months. The guilt I'd been carrying about moving on finally demanded to be addressed. I stood at his grave in the early morning light, reading the inscription I'd chosen 8 years ago. David Mitchell, beloved husband and father, hero who served with honor. I found someone, I said quietly to the marble stone. His name is Dante, and he is nothing like you. He is dangerous and complicated and exists in a world you spent your career fighting against. But David, he saved us. He saved me and Emma when I couldn't save us myself. Tears slid down my cheeks, but they weren't bitter anymore. I'll always love you. You gave me the best years of my life, and you gave me Emma. But I can't stay frozen in grief forever. I think you'd understand that. I think you'd want me to be happy again, even if it is with someone you might not have approved of. I stayed a while longer, talking to memories of the man I'd lost, making peace with moving forward. When I finally drove back to the Romano estate, it felt lighter somehow. Not forgetting David, but allowing him to be part of my past rather than a weight anchoring me there. Dante was awake when I returned, standing in the kitchen with coffee and concern in his eyes. "Where did you go?" "To visit David's grave, to tell him about you, about us." I accepted the coffee he offered. I needed to make peace with moving on. Understanding softened his features. "And did you?" "Yes. I realized that loving you isn't betraying him. It is just different chapters of the same life." Dante pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Thank you for telling me." We were interrupted by Emma appearing in her pajamas, hair wild from sleep, taking in the scene with knowing eyes far too old for 12. "So," she said bluntly, climbing onto a bar stool. "Are you guys going to get married? Because Marco says Uncle Dante looks at you the way his papa looked at his mama, and they were married for 50 years. Dante laughed, surprised and genuine. "Marco discusses my personal life with you? He discusses everything with me. He says, I am a good listener." She stole a piece of fruit from the counter. "But seriously, are you getting married?" Dante looked at me, something warm and promising in his eyes. "Would you want that, Piccola, if your mother and I decided to make this official?" "Obviously, you already act married anyway. Might as well make it legal so I can have a real family again." The simplicity of childhood logic, cutting through complexity to essential truth. Dante and I exchanged glances over Emma's head. Conversations we hadn't yet had, suddenly laid bare by a preteen's directness. "I have plans," Dante told Emma seriously. "But these things take time to do properly. When I ask your mother to marry me, it'll be special, not rushed." "As long as it happens," Emma said with satisfaction. "Also, can we have pasta for breakfast? Marco says Italians do that." As Dante moved to prepare food and Emma chattered about her therapy session yesterday, I leaned against the counter and watched them. This impossible family we were building from trauma and protection and love that had no business working but somehow did. 2 months ago, I'd been broken and bleeding. Now I was whole in ways I'd forgotten were possible. And somewhere between survival and safety, I'd found a future worth believing in again. 4 months passed in what felt like a dream I kept waiting to wake from. Dante and I settled into a rhythm that felt remarkably normal despite the extraordinary circumstances. Mornings with coffee and Emma's chatter about school. Evenings reviewing my coursework while he handled business I chose not to examine too closely. Nights wrapped in each other, confirming that what we'd built was real. The foundation became my purpose beyond family. Dante had established it quietly, a charity focused on helping women escape domestic violence, and he'd asked me to manage it. At first, I'd been hesitant, wondering if I was qualified. But he'd simply said, "You survived what they're surviving. That makes you more qualified than any degree." I threw myself into the work with determination I hadn't felt in years. We provided emergency housing, legal assistance, job training, everything I'd needed when I was trapped with Marcus and too afraid to ask for help. Each woman who walked through our doors felt like a piece of my own story being rewritten with a better ending. Emma had grown too, no longer the terrified child hiding in closets, but a confident preteen who debated politics with Marco and challenged Dante's opinions on everything from food to philosophy. Watching her blossom made every difficult choice worth it. She called me Dad today, Dante told me one evening, voice rough with emotion. We were alone in his study while Emma did homework upstairs. Not Uncle Dante, just Dad, completely casual, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I touched his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. How did that feel? Terrifying, perfect. Like I've been given something precious I don't deserve but will protect with everything I have. "You deserve it," I said firmly. You've been more of a father to her in 6 months than Marcus ever attempted to be. That particular Tuesday started like any other. I left the Foundation office around 5, my security detail trailing at a discreet distance as always. Dante's precautions had become so routine I barely noticed them anymore. Just accepted that this was the price of loving a dangerous man. I was halfway to my car when I felt it. That primitive warning that something was wrong. The parking garage was too quiet, the usual ambient noise missing. My security guard, Lucas, noticed too. His hand moved toward his jacket in a gesture I'd learned meant weapon. Mrs. Romano, get behind me. I'd barely processed the title he used, the assumption of marriage that had become common among Dante's people, when 3 men appeared from behind vehicles. Not Lucas's backup, strangers with hard faces and harder intentions. Everything happened fast. Lucas drew his weapon, shouting for me to run. I did, heels clicking frantically on concrete as I sprinted toward the exit. Behind me, gunshots, the sharp crack of violence I'd only heard in movies. Me phone was in my hand, Dante's number dialing automatically, my security training kicking in through pure adrenaline. Claire. His voice answered immediately. Garage, Foundation office, Lucas said run. I gasped, not slowing, hearing footsteps behind me getting closer. Dante's voice went cold and lethal. Keep running, Vincent's 2 blocks away. I am coming now, stay on the line. I burst out of the garage into afternoon sunlight just as Vincent's familiar black SUV screeched to a stop beside me. He had the door open before the vehicle fully stopped, pulling me inside with professional efficiency while still maintaining his weapon in the other hand. Are you hurt? No, but Lucas. Backup's handling it. Mr. Romano's orders are to get you home immediately. The drive back felt eternal and instant simultaneously. By the time we reached the mansion, Dante was already there, having apparently broken every traffic law to arrive before us. He had me out of the vehicle and in his arms before Vincent could fully park. Hands running over me, checking for injuries with barely controlled panic. I am fine, I kept repeating. Dante, I am fine. They didn't touch me. They tried to take you. His voice shook with rage I'd never heard before. They knew your schedule, knew your route. Planned this specifically to grab you and use you against me. The implications sank in slowly. This wasn't random violence, it was calculated. An attack on Dante through the people he loved. Inside, Dante made calls while I sat on the couch, trying to process what had happened. Emma appeared from upstairs, took one look at my face, and came to sit beside me without asking questions. Just pressed against my side, offering wordless comfort that made my eyes burn. Russian crew, Dante said finally, phone tucked away, his expression carved from stone. The same family I've been negotiating territory with for months. They thought taking you would give them leverage. Did they hurt Lucas? He is alive, wounded but stable. He did his job protecting you. Dante crossed to where Emma and I sat, kneeling down so he was at eye level with both of us. This is my fault, my world touching yours in exactly the way I promised to prevent. This isn't your fault, I said firmly. This is on whoever decided I was a valid target. What happens now? Now I handle it permanently. The promise in his voice was absolute and terrifying. But first, I need to know if you want out. If this is too much. If you'd rather take Emma and go somewhere safe, where my enemies can't use you against me. The question hung heavy between us. This was the reality check I'd always known was coming. The moment where loving Dante meant accepting real danger beyond theoretical acknowledgement. Do you want us to go? I asked, instead of answering. No, but I want you safe more than I want you with me. Then make us safe. I reached for his hand. I am not leaving, Dante. What we have, what we've built, it is worth fighting for. But I need you to handle this threat the way only you can. Something shifted in his expression, relief and determination mixing. It'll be handled within 48 hours. I am making calls tonight that will ensure the Russians understand you are completely off. Limits. What kind of calls? The kind you are better off not knowing details about legal pressure, strategic alliances, demonstrations of power that make further attempts inadvisable. He touched my face gently. No unnecessary violence, but absolute certainty that this never happens again. 2 days later, Dante came home early with news that the Russian situation had been resolved through mutual understanding and strategic repositioning. I didn't ask for specifics, just accepted that whatever he'd done had worked. That evening, after Emma was in bed, Dante found me in the library where I'd been trying to read, but mostly just processing everything that had happened. "I've been thinking," he said, settling beside me on the couch. "About the business, about what I am willing to compromise on." He took my hand, threading our fingers together. "I can't walk away completely. It doesn't work that way. But I can reduce my involvement in the more dangerous aspects. Delegate more, be more strategic about which battles I fight. Dante, I am not asking you to change your entire life for me. I know, but I am asking myself if I want to, and the answer is yes." He pulled me closer. "You and Emma are my priority now. That means making choices that keep all of us safer, including stepping back from operations that attract too much heat." The significance of what he was offering settled over me. This was a fundamental shift in his priorities, choosing family over empire in ways that most men in his position never would. "There is something else," Dante continued. And suddenly, he looked almost nervous, an expression I'd never seen on him before. "Claire, we've been building a life together for 6 months now. You sleep in my bed, raise your daughter in my home, manage my foundation, and face down threats from my enemies without flinching. At some point, we need to acknowledge what this actually is." My heart started racing. "What is it?" He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box that made my breath catch. "A commitment, a future. Everything I never thought I'd want until I found you bleeding in my foyer and your daughter washing my dishes at 2 a.m. Dante opened the box, revealing a ring that was elegant and understated. Exactly what I would have chosen if asked. "Claire Bennett, will you marry me? Will you let me adopt Emma officially and make us a real family by every legal and moral definition?" Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging my throat. Yes to all of it." He slid the ring onto my finger, then kissed me with a tenderness that contrasted beautifully with the danger he represented to the rest of the world. "There is one more person we need to ask," I said when we finally broke apart. We found Emma in her room, supposedly asleep, but actually reading under the covers with a flashlight. She looked up guiltily when we entered, then saw our faces and sat up straight. "What happened? Is everything okay?" Dante sat on the edge of her bed, suddenly looking vulnerable in ways that made my chest ache. "Emma, I asked your mother to marry me tonight, and she said yes. But before we make it official, I need to ask you something important." Emma's eyes went wide, darting between us with barely contained excitement. "I'd like to adopt you," Dante continued. "Legally make you my daughter, give you my name if you want it. Be your father in every way that matters, but only if that is something you want too." For a moment, Emma just stared at him, processing. Then she launched herself at Dante, wrapping thin arms around his neck and bursting into tears. "Is that a yes?" he asked gently, holding her carefully. "Yes," she sobbed against his shoulder. "Yes, I want you to be my dad. Real dad, not just the person mom's dating. Can I really have your last name?" "Emma Romano." Dante tested the sound. "It suits you." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. When does this happen?" "The adoption paperwork starts tomorrow," I said, sitting on her other side. "The wedding will take a few months to plan properly." "Can Marco make the food?" Emma asked immediately. "And can I wear whatever dress I want? Not some frilly thing?" Dante laughed, the sound genuine and free. "Marco will make whatever you want, and you can wear anything that makes you happy." After Emma finally fell asleep, excitement exhausting her, Dante and I stood in the hallway outside her door. "We're really doing this," I said softly. "Getting married, becoming a real family." "We've been a real family for months," Dante corrected. "We're just making it official now." He pulled me close. 6 months ago, you were hiding from a man who hurt you. Now you are managing a foundation, earning your degree, and agreeing to marry someone arguably more dangerous than your abuser ever was. "You are nothing like Marcus," I said firmly. "Marcus used his power to hurt people weaker than him. You use yours to protect people you love. That is the difference that matters." We stood there in the quiet hallway, holding each other while Emma slept peacefully nearby, and I marveled at how completely my life had transformed. From that desperate night at 2 a.m. to this moment of choosing forever with full knowledge of what that meant. Marco found out about the engagement the next morning and immediately declared he would teach Emma his family's special pasta recipe, the one reserved for important Romano celebrations. "Every woman in this family must know how to make it," he proclaimed, hands gesturing emphatically. "It is tradition." I watched Emma and Marco work together in the kitchen, Dante observing from the doorway with an expression of contentment I'd never seen before. We'd somehow taken 3 shattered lives and stitched them into something that almost impossibly resembled a family. "No regrets?" Dante asked quietly, coming to stand beside me. "Not one," I answered honestly. "You. Only that I didn't find you sooner, that you had to suffer before finding your way here. Maybe we both needed to survive what we did to appreciate what we have now, 6 months. From terrified to engaged, from broken to whole, from surviving to actually living. It was an impossible journey, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. 1 year, 365 days since that rainy night at 2 a.m. when everything changed. I woke in Dante's bed, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked gardens where I'd soon be married, and felt a peace so profound, it almost frightened me with its completeness. "You are awake early," Dante murmured beside me, pulling me closer against his chest. Nervous, excited, there is a difference. I turned to face him, tracing the line of his jaw. "A year ago, I was broken and terrified. Today, I am marrying the man who saved me and choosing a future I never thought I'd have again." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone in that gesture that had become his signature tenderness. "You saved yourself, Claire. I just gave you somewhere safe to do it." The ceremony would be small, intimate, exactly what we wanted. No grand affair that would draw attention Dante's associates didn't need. Just the people who mattered, gathered in our garden to witness us making official what had been true for months. Marco had been cooking for 3 days, determined that every dish be perfect. Vincent and the security team had transformed the garden into something magical with lights and flowers, while maintaining the discreet protection that was now just part of our lives. Even Emma's therapist would be there, the woman who'd helped my daughter heal enough to embrace this new family without fear. "I should go," I said reluctantly. "Apparently, it is bad luck for you to see me before the ceremony." "I don't believe in luck. I believe in choices, and I chose you." But he released me anyway, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Go get ready to become Mrs. Romano." I found Emma in her room, already dressed in the dark burgundy dress she'd chosen herself, not the frilly flower. Girl confection traditional weddings demanded, but something elegant and mature that suited the young woman she was becoming. "You look beautiful, baby," I said from the doorway. She turned, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Mom, are you happy? Really, truly happy?" I crossed the room to sit beside her on the bed. "More than I ever imagined being again. Why are you crying?" "Because a year ago, we were so scared and hurt, and Marcus was still out there making us afraid of everything. And now you are marrying Dante, and we're safe, and I have a real dad who actually wants me." She wiped her eyes. "Sometimes I am scared I'll wake up and it'll all be gone." "Oh, sweetheart." I pulled her close. "This is real. Sometimes terrible things have to happen before good things can find us. But you never ever should have had to accept abuse hoping for something better after. We got lucky, impossibly lucky. But that doesn't make what Marcus did okay. I know, Dr. Martina has explained about that, about not romanticizing trauma." Emma pulled back, suddenly looking much older than 13. "But I am still glad Dante found us, even if the way it happened was awful." "Me too, baby. Me too." The ceremony was scheduled for 4 in the afternoon, when the light would be golden and perfect. I dressed in the simple ivory gown I'd chosen, elegant without being ostentatious, with my hair loose the way Dante preferred. Looking at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back, not because I looked different physically, but because the fear was gone from my eyes, replaced by something that looked remarkably like joy. Marco knocked softly before entering, his eyes already wet. "Signora Claire, you are beautiful, like an angel. Dante does not deserve, but I am grateful he found anyway. Thank you, Marco, for everything. Not just today, but every day since we came here. You and Piccola Emma, you are family now. Real family." He offered his arm. "Come. It is time. Dante is waiting." and he is very nervous, though he pretends not to be. The garden was transformed. White chairs arranged in neat rows, flowers everywhere, and at the end of the aisle stood Dante in a black suit that made him look devastatingly handsome and dangerous all at once. But his eyes when he saw me were soft, vulnerable in ways the rest of the world never got to see. Emma walked first, carrying flowers with careful concentration, taking her role as only bridesmaid seriously. Then Marco walked me down the aisle, giving me away in the absence of my father who'd passed years ago and would have either hated or reluctantly respected Dante. I'd never know which. "You look perfect," Dante whispered when I reached him, taking my hands in his. "Thank you for choosing me." The ceremony was short, the officiant speaking about commitment and choice and building families from love rather than obligation. But it was the vows that mattered, the ones Dante and I had written ourselves. "Claire," Dante began, his voice steady, but his hands trembling slightly in mine. "1 year ago, you came into my life bleeding and terrified, and something in me shifted permanently. You showed me that strength isn't about never breaking. It is about choosing to heal. You taught me that some things are worth more than power or control. That vulnerability isn't weakness when shared with someone trustworthy." He paused, emotion flickering across his face. "I promise to protect you and Emma with everything I have. To be honest, even when the truth is ugly, to choose both of you over business and territory and everything else that used to define my life. I love you completely, and I will spend the rest of my life proving you were right to trust me." I blinked back tears, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dante, you gave me safety when I had none, protection when I desperately needed it, and love when I thought I'd never feel it again. You showed Emma what a real father looks like, taught me that power doesn't have to mean pain, that dangerous men can also be gentle with the people they love." My voice wavered slightly. "I am not naive about who you are or the world you live in, but I choose it anyway, because being with you is worth whatever complications come with it. I promise to stand beside you, to trust you even when it is difficult, to build a life with you that honors both of our pasts while creating something new for our future. I love you, and I choose you every single day." When Dante kissed me, sealing vows we'd made with complete honesty about who we were and what this meant, I heard Marco crying quietly and several of the security team clearing their throats suspiciously. We were married. Officially, legally, irrevocably united. The reception was perfect in its simplicity. Marco had outdone himself with food that made everyone groan with pleasure. Wine flowed freely, and toasts were made that ranged from heartfelt to hilariously inappropriate from some of Dante's associates, who clearly weren't used to family-friendly events. The highlight came when Emma presented the dish she'd spent weeks perfecting, carbonara made exactly to Marco's exacting standards. She carried it to our table with such pride, placing it before us like an offering. "I made this myself," she announced. "Marco only helped a little. He says every Romano woman needs to know the family recipes, so I learned." Dante's eyes were suspiciously bright as he tasted it. Perfect figlia mia, absolutely perfect. The casual Italian endearment. "My daughter," made Emma's entire face light up. The adoption had been finalized 2 weeks ago, making her Emma Romano officially, but hearing Dante claim her so naturally still made her glow. As the sun set and lights came on throughout the garden, Dante stood to make a toast. "To family," he said simply, his glass raised. "Not the one we're born into, but the one we choose. To Claire, who took a terrifying leap of faith. To Emma, who showed me what it means to be a father. To all of you who've supported us building something impossible. Salute. Salute," everyone echoed, glasses clinking. Later, much later, after guests had left and Marco had finally stopped fussing over cleanup, the three of us ended up in the garden under a sky full of stars. Emma had fallen asleep against Dante's shoulder, exhausted by excitement, and he carried her inside with the ease of practice. When he returned, we stood together in the quiet night, my hand in his, wedding rings gleaming in the moonlight. "A year ago, I was hiding in a hospital, terrified and alone," I said softly. "Now I am standing here as your wife, with a daughter who is safe and happy, and a future I never dreamed was possible." "A year ago, I was living half a life," Dante replied, pulling me close. "Going through motions, building an empire that meant nothing beyond power. Now I have everything that actually matters." No regrets? Not a single one. He kissed my forehead, though I reserve the right to be terrified about how much I love you both, about how vulnerable that makes me. Being vulnerable with the right person isn't weakness. You taught me that. We stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other and the life we'd built from impossible circumstances. Behind us, the house glowed with warm light. Our home, our sanctuary, our future. Mrs. Romano, Dante murmured against my hair. Mr. Romano, I replied, smiling. Ready to start forever. I thought about everything we'd survived to get here, the violence I'd endured, the fear Emma had lived with, the desperate gamble of trusting a dangerous man I barely knew, and I thought about what we'd built instead. Love and safety and a family stitched together from broken pieces. I've been ready since the moment you asked permission to hold me, I said, since you chose to protect us instead of looking away, since you showed me that power in the right hands can heal instead of harm. Dante kissed me then, slow and deep and full of promise. When we finally broke apart, he took my hand and led me inside, toward the bedroom we now shared as husband and wife. I love you, he said at the threshold, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. I love you too, and I am not afraid anymore. Not of Marcus's memory, not of your world, not of being happy again. You gave me that, the freedom to choose joy without guilt. We crossed into our room together, closing the door on the past and opening ourselves to whatever the future held. It wouldn't always be easy. Dante's world would always carry risks, and we'd face challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But we'd face them together, as a family, with the kind of love that had survived the impossible to exist at all. In the morning, I'd wake up as Claire Romano, as a wife, a mother to Emma Romano, a partner to one of the most dangerous men in New York, but also as myself, stronger than I'd ever been, healed in ways I'd thought were impossible, and loved with an intensity that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. The maid who'd cleaned Dante's kitchen for 5 years, making herself invisible, was gone. In her place was a woman who'd learned that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected sources. That power doesn't have to corrupt. That love can bloom even in the darkest soil. Emma was safe, I was whole, we were family, and for the first time in 8 years, I believed in forevers again. The foundation occupied a beautiful brownstone in Manhattan now, fully staffed and helping dozens of women every month. I walked through the main office, greeting counselors and caseworkers, checking on the new arrivals and temporary housing upstairs. Me phone buzzed with a text from Dante, dinner at 7. Marco is making your favorite. Emma wants to show you something she learned in her cooking class. I smiled, typing back, I'll be there. Love you. 3 dots appeared. Then, love you more. Drive safe. Vincent is waiting outside, 2 years of marriage, and Dante still insisted on security details. But I didn't mind anymore. Understood it was his way of showing love, of protecting what mattered most. And after the Russian incident, I'd learned that his caution wasn't paranoia but prudence. In my office, I reviewed files for a new intake. Jessica, 34, 2 children. Finally ready to leave after 5 years of abuse. I saw myself in her eyes during our first meeting. That mixture of hope and terror, the fear that freedom might hurt worse than captivity. You are safe here, I told her, meaning it. And I promise you, there is life after this. Real life, not just survival. She'd cried, and I'd held her hand, remembering how Dante had done the same for me 2 years ago in his kitchen at 2 a.m. The foundation was my purpose, my way of turning trauma into something meaningful. Every woman who walked through our doors was a piece of my own story being rewritten, and knowing that Dante's resources backed every bit of it, that his dangerous world could also create sanctuary, made everything we'd been through worthwhile. At home, Emma had grown into a confident 15-year-old who moved through the Romano estate like she owned it. She'd taken to calling it the family business whenever friends asked about Dante's work, a phrase that was technically true and deliberately vague. Mom, she called when I arrived, flour already dusting her nose. Look what Marco taught me. She'd made sfogliatelle from scratch, the notoriously difficult Italian pastry that Marco claimed took years to master. They were perfect, golden, and flaky, and shaped like seashells. Figlia mia, you are becoming better than me. Marco lamented dramatically, though his eyes shone with pride. Soon you will not need your old maestro anymore. I'll always need you, Marco, Emma said, kissing his cheek. You are family. Dante appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd attended, and I watched his face soften the way it always did when he saw us. 2 years, and that look still made my heart skip. How was your day? He asked, pulling me close for a kiss that was appropriate for present company, but promised more for later. Good. We have a new family coming in tomorrow, mother and 2 kids, 7 and 9. I leaned into him, reminded me of us. Then they're in good hands. He kissed my forehead. Dinner in 20 minutes. Emma, set the table. Claire, come with me for a moment. In his study, away from listening ears, Dante pulled me into his arms properly. I missed you. I saw you this morning. I know, still missed you. He tilted my face up. I got a call today. The Castellano family wants to meet. They're impressed with the foundation's work. Teresa Castellano wants to get involved, maybe help expand the program. I understood what he wasn't saying, that my work was earning respect in his world, that the foundation was becoming something bigger than just our family project, that I'd found my place in this complicated life, not as Dante's wife in the shadows, but as someone with her own power and purpose. That is good, right? That is very good. It means you are building something that matters, Kara, something that will outlast all of us. He paused. I am proud of you, of everything you've become. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, but I am grateful you didn't have to. He kissed me again, deeper this time. Now come, Marco will murder us both if we let his pasta get cold. At dinner, Emma chattered about her cooking competition next month. Marco had entered her in a junior chef program, and she was taking it very seriously. Dante listened with genuine interest, asking questions about technique and ingredients, playing the role of supportive father with the same intensity he brought to everything else. After Emma went upstairs to study, Dante and I walked through the garden where we'd married 2 years ago. The flowers had changed with the seasons, but the fountain still murmured in the center, and the lights still made everything magical. Do you ever think about that night? I asked. When Emma showed up at 2 a.m. Every day? Dante pulled me close. I think about how close I came to never knowing you. About what would have happened if I'd been traveling that night. If Emma had encountered different staff, if 100 small things had gone differently. Sliding doors, I murmured. What? It is a movie reference, about how our whole lives can change based on split-second timing. I looked up at him. I am glad our doors slid the way they did. Even knowing everything you know now, the danger, the compromises, the world you married into, especially knowing all that. I touched his face. Because I also know what you are capable of when you love someone, and that is worth everything else. Dante kissed me with the kind of passion that still took my breath away after 2 years. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, Claire Romano, more every day, which I didn't think was possible. I love you too, and thank you. For what? For seeing me that night, for seeing Emma, for being the kind of dangerous that protected instead of destroyed, for showing us what family really means. We stood there in the garden where we'd married, where we'd made promises we'd kept, where we'd built a life from impossible circumstances. Behind us, the house glowed with warmth. Emma inside studying, Marco cleaning his kitchen, Vincent and the security team maintaining their vigilant watch. This was our life now, complicated, unconventional, built on foundations most people would never understand. But it was ours, chosen freely with eyes wide open to all the risks and rewards. The maid who'd once cleaned Dante's kitchen, making herself invisible, was long gone. In her place was Claire Romano, wife, mother, advocate, survivor, and architect of her own future. Emma was thriving. I was whole. We were family. And that night at 2 a.m. when everything changed, it wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. The end.